listening to Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
2 certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only 2 best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go. As Samuel L. Jackson's character says in Jurassic Park, hold on to your butts. Because
Please explain.
I feel like the implication is clear. This is going to be a bumpy ride. This is going to be dangerous. This is going to be scary. But we're going to make it through together. Because people pleasing, I knew it was a problem.
I knew it was a problem.
Well, I know, because I've witnessed a lot of people pleasers. I do not identify as one, but I went and read this book, The Disease to Please, which you and I both read in preparation for this podcast because we wanted to do an episode about it, but we wanted to have more facts.
Actually, it started out where I was going against some of my own people-pleasing tendencies and recognizing them.
Who told you that you were trying to manipulate situations through your own people-pleasing?
We'll get into the manipulative side of people-pleasing. But I actually texted our friend Joanna, who was on the podcast a few weeks ago, and asked her, do you have any good books about people-pleasing? Because I think I've come a long way, but I still have some work to do.
Clearly.
And she recommended this book, The Disease to Please, which we're going to be referencing quite a bit. And
I do recommend now that I've read it.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely recommend it. And it opened up my eyes to even more ways that people-pleasing not just affects me, but so many people.
It is insidious. And now that I have read even more about it, I'm seeing it way more in a lot of people, a lot of my clients.
Yep.
So we're going to get into it. I think that a lot of you probably already identify as a people pleaser. But I want to say, even though you might not, you might be in denial. There might be some things you don't realize count as people pleasing.
And we'll get into those.
And you might be like me. I read this book and there's like a million quizzes about different types of people pleasing. And I took them all and I failed every quiz. Happily, I failed every quiz. However, even I have fallen into people pleasing habits in the past around certain people. I would say that I am not generally in any way a people pleaser, but there have been certain people in my life, like a handful that I'm thinking of, maybe 2 or 3, who have triggered this behavior in me. And so even if you think you're safe from it, we all fall into this, and it's on a spectrum. It's not like a yes or no. It's more of a how intense versus how mild.
Right. The author of this book describes it as everyone people pleases, but some people have the disease to please, where it's actually taking over your life to some extent.
It's a compulsion rather than just a
thing that you sometimes do,
or a thing that you sometimes do when you know you kind of maybe shouldn't. It becomes a compulsion. So for those of you who are going to straight up identify as compulsive people pleasers with an addiction, some of you will after this. And for those of you who just maybe have a bad habit here or there, this is going to be helpful. Also, you all know one.
Oh, yeah.
100% of you know one, because I think I'm going to guess. So I'm not saying this is from the book. I'm going to guess that a good 30% of people are people pleasers.
I'd say that's probably true.
I would say that might be low.
Just even looking around in the circles of people that I know, I think it might even be closer to 40 or
like
something.
Out of the 4 out of our 4, like our little core group of 4 friends, I think 3 out of the 4 of you would totally identify in some way or another as historically having been people pleasers and then having worked on it a lot.
Yep.
You might not identify with it anymore, but I'm like the only one who doesn't resonate when you guys start talking about this stuff.
Yeah, that's true. We all have in common.
So maybe it's 75% of people. I don't know.
We all have family members. Absolutely.
Yep.
Somewhere in your family, probably multiple, who are people pleasers. So even if this doesn't really relate on a personal level, which it probably does. But even if it doesn't for you, it's going to help you understand other people in your life better.
And not feel guilty around people pleasers, because people pleasers can become martyrs.
Yep.
And they often make you feel really guilty for not pleasing them too. This goes both ways, which is something people pleasers don't want to hear, that they have negative consequences on other people. But boy, they do.
Yep.
So we're going to get in what it is, like what is people pleasing, how to recognize it, why are we doing this, like where does it come from, the consequences, and then how to heal from it. And this is a side chat. This is supposed to be like 30 or 40 minutes. I have every doubt in my mind that that's going to happen. I don't think so. It's going to probably be a longer side chat. This is going to be more of like people pleasing 101.
Yeah, this is kind of an intro workshop into this whole concept, and we'll still only scratch the surface.
So if you want more, I would recommend reading The Disease to Please by Harriet Braiker, PhD. We'll link to it in the show notes. Okay, so
let's use her definition of what is people pleasing in the first place. She describes it as people whose lives become impaired by the compulsion to put others' needs first, to never say no, to strive endlessly for everyone's approval, and to try to make everyone else happy. Just reading that is exhausting.
Did you check every box at some point in your life?
Oh, at some point, 100%.
I don't think that you check all of those boxes now.
No. No. Certainly not the saying no one. I secretly love saying no to things now.
You've always loved saying no.
That's true, but I didn't do it.
You just didn't want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so people pleasing is also both about, this is really important. It's about how you think you should be, but it's also about how you think others should be. So I'm going to read a couple things. I'm going to read the 10 commandments of people pleasing according to, I'm just going to call her Dr. Braiker, and the 7 deadly shoulds. And so this is going to be good because this will help you recognize very quickly in yourself how much you resonate, okay? 10 commandments of people pleasing. 1, I should always do what others want, expect, or need from me. I should take care of everyone around me, whether they ask for help or not. I should always listen to everyone's problems and try my best to solve them. I should always be nice and never hurt anyone's feelings. I should always put other people first, before me. I should never say no to anyone who needs or requests something of me. I should never disappoint anyone or let others down in any way. I should always be happy and upbeat and never show any negative feelings to others. I should always try to please other people and make them happy. I should try to never burden others with my own needs or problems. I don't resonate with any of those. Like, I don't understand it, this is why this is so fascinating, is because I love exploring things I don't really understand.
I love that we're having this conversation because this is just a fascinating theory to you, and this has been most of my life.
I know.
So there's like the personal experience here, and then just the theoretical kind of conceptualizing both. And so it's kind of cool to see, what is it like to not be like this? Because you don't resonate with any of those. At some point in my life, I could say I believed all of them. Some of them I'm still trying not to believe. Some of them I just don't anymore. But I'm not totally recovered from all of that.
It's wild. Okay, so we're gonna get into all of this, but I also want to read that people pleasing involves a number of expectations about the way other people should treat you based on how nice you are and happy you are all the time, right? Like, people pleasers make a bargain with the universe. It doesn't actually work, but the bargain they think they're making is the nicer and more congenial and go with the flow and almost amenable I am to other people and their needs, then I deserve for them to treat me a certain way.
Right. Well, I deserve to be treated well because I'm doing so much for them. And it's not supposed to be, in their minds, they're not thinking of it in a transactional way that way. But it's like, if I treat someone well, they should treat me well in return, right?
Well, it is the golden rule, right? Treat others the way you want to be treated. However, what happens when you have a compulsive people-pleasing habit is that you use it as a subtle form of manipulating how other people treat you and trying to avoid any negative emotion or confrontation often. So these are the ways you believe other people should treat you because you're so nice. Other people should appreciate and love me because of all the things I do for them. Other people should always like and approve of me because of how hard I work to please them. Other people should never reject or criticize me because I always try to live up to their desires and expectations. Other people should be kind and caring to me in return because of how well I treat them. Other people should never hurt or treat me unfairly because I'm so nice to them. Other people should never leave or abandon me because of how much I make them need me. Other people should never be angry with me because I would go to any length to avoid conflict, anger, or confrontation with them. Ooh,
Yep.
do you hear? Do you hear how within that, it's like you've decided that the nicer I can be and the more helpful I can be and the more I please everyone around me, the more I can avoid uncomfortable things.
And it's also like I don't have to worry about not being liked for who I am because I can
Right.
be liked for what I do.
I can earn people's liking and their acceptance and their approval through my actions. And so I expect to then get treated a certain way. It's like if I get a certain number of points, then I belong in the top bracket and the top bracket people get treated the best.
Right.
Right. Of course, I think we all know, and we're going to get into this, you cannot guarantee or control how anyone else treats you. And who people are has nothing to do with you. Often how they treat you has literally nothing to do with you and everything to do with who they are. And so it's a false promise we make ourselves, and it fails. It fails over and over and over again.
And we always get disappointed because you can't expect anyone
To not reject you. You're
Right.
going to get rejected. That is life. You will
Right.
absolutely 100%.
or disappoint you sometimes,
Yes.
even if they're not trying to reject you. They're
Uh-huh.
going to disappoint you sometimes. And
Or disagree with you.
it's not fair to say you can never disappoint me because I always do all these things for you.
Yep.
That is a transactional way of living, even if that's not your intention.
And then there's a third thing, which is you make yourself miserable by believing three main musts or shoulds. I'm going to have Kristen read those 3 musts and shoulds.
So the first one is I must do well, please others, or be liked by significant others, or else I will be worthless. Yeah.
Eek.
Obviously, that creates depression, anxiety, fear, lack
Right.
of self-worth,
Right.
all of that. 2, you must treat me kindly, sweetly, or approvingly, or else you are wrong and mean. Because if you're
Wow.
wrong, if you don't do those things to me who's nice, then you must be the mean one. And I'm the nice one.
It's a binary world, apparently.
Yep.
Ooh, no wonder that's how they get you. They guilt trip you.
Yep. And 3, conditions in life must or should be the way I want, or it's horrible, catastrophic, or disastrous.
Wow. So that is a huge point right there. That people pleasing is about control.
Yes.
You are trying to control other people.
Trying to control the situation.
You're trying to control the situation. You're trying to control
your own emotions.
You're trying to control the universe.
Yep.
Literally, you are trying to control almost everything so that it will go your way. And it is exhausting. It is why people pleasers are burnt out.
Yep.
They are the most probably burnout people on the planet.
You're probably the peacemaker in your family or your friend group, where if something comes up, you immediately try to smooth it all over. And which is controlling the situation, right? You're
Right.
smoothing over
Because-
intense
right.
emotion because it's uncomfortable.
Because you believe that there's something wrong with confrontation
Yep.
and conflict, which we're going to get into. So, okay. Those are some big like check boxes, but there's more ways that we can recognize this within ourselves.
Right. So the first I would say is if you believe that being a nice person will protect you from bad things in life, right? Like from being rejected or through being hurt, then like it's a protective mechanism. That's
Yes.
why we do it, is I'm afraid that if I'm not nice all the time, then I've almost invited people to be mean to me.
I believe that being nice will insulate me from difficult, hurtful things in life.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker. You're often really demanding and harsh and critical and perfectionist with yourself.
Oh yeah, no,
You
that
don't-
doesn't extend to you.
No. You're not a person as much as everyone else is a person.
Right.
You're
right.
the lowest on the totem pole. You are not worthy. You don't deserve as much as everyone else.
Right. So yeah, it is kind of funny that you're so nice to everyone else, but so mean to yourself.
So you measure your performance in everything according to whether others are pleased with you and not whether you are pleased with yourself. I was riding in the car with my mom recently. Hello, Mom. If you listen to our podcast, this is a test. And we were talking about something like this. And I was saying, I don't care about anyone's opinion about me more than I care about my own opinion of me. And she was a little mind blown by that because I think she would totally admit that she has some people pleasing habits as well.
Yep.
And I read this and I'm like, duh, of course, how pleased you are with yourself matters more than how pleased everyone else is with you. But apparently that is a mind-blowing concept for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's not just a given that everyone thinks that way.
Well, I understand it's not. I've coached like hundreds and thousands of people at this point. I do see that. But I think what people pleasers believe is that thinking there's something maybe selfish or there's something like a superiority complex you must have if you care more about your own opinion of yourself more than you care about other people's opinion of you.
Right. And selfishness is one of the worst things that a people pleaser could be called. They're terrified of coming across as selfish.
Why do you think,
they will be selfless.
Why do you think, okay, so I know what the book says about this, but I'm curious, what do you think, why do they care so much about being called selfish? Like, why is selfish bad?
Selfish is bad because nobody likes selfish people. So you're not likable.
You'll get abandoned. Selfish.
Well, yeah, right. That's the worst case scenario that the book goes to, right? So the worst possible outcome of being selfish is being abandoned by people that you love.
Okay.
But so it could even be
the
not
more
being
selfless
liked at
I can be, the more I can guarantee people will stay close to me.
Right.
Except in the book, and I've seen this to be true, it's actually the reverse. That the
the reality is
you push people away by smothering them and suffocating them and trying to be too nice, and then people don't know who you are and they can't connect with you, so they reject you because they don't know who you are and they've never been able to know who you are.
Right.
It's like the nail in your own coffin.
Yeah, that's why it's a disease, right? This is not a healthy way of interacting with people, and we're not advocating that it is. But that's the belief that keeps you doing it, is that people won't leave me if I kill them with kindness.
Well, you'll kill them, and then they'll be dead, and then you'll be alone. I think that's all we have to say. We're going to wrap this podcast up. Okay, so another thing is people pleasers feel something might be true. And this is often based in history. So my dad was really rejecting of me, and his love was very conditional. And so I kind of have this habit where I believe that all men are going to reject me. And so if I feel like someone is about to reject me, or if almost to like head it off, even if they're giving me no indication that I'm about to be rejected, I'm going to act as if that were already an established fact. And I'm going to behave according to my eventual assumption that I'm going to get rejected, for example. And I'm going to do things to prevent this false reality that I've constructed from happening.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Or it could be if you sense, oh, that person seems like they might be getting upset with me, you will switch tactics and
try to smooth things over,
try to be particularly accommodating, really overly nice to head off a potential argument. So if they're starting to get ticked off and you be really nice, it's hard. Well, a people pleaser believes it's hard to get mad at a nice person. So I'll protect myself that way.
That's
right?
funny.
And again, we know we can step back and say, no, you can actually get mad at someone
because they're being so nice.
Right. But that's the flawed premise that keeps people in this cycle of people pleasing.
So let's get into the real meat of this conversation. Part one is, why do we do this? And I'm going to just I love this. Like, this is my bread and butter right here, is getting tough on people, but in a loving way in order to help you grow. This is an addiction, okay? People pleasing in its strongest forms. And I do encourage you, if you feel like you relate to this, to read the book and take the quizzes, because it'll give you a scale of how bad it is for you. There's like kind of like a really low, non-existent, and a medium, and then there's an extreme or like a high. And I think it's actually easier to get the high score than you think it is.
Yeah.
So people pleasing is an addiction. It is not something you want to do. It is something you need to do. You feel compelled to do. It is like an alcoholic. Like, they don't just want to drink, they need a drink. You don't just want approval, you need approval. Yes. And you feel like if you don't get it
from everyone,
you will crumble.
Right. Not just from a few select people, from everyone.
So,
to a people pleaser, if everyone accepts you but one person doesn't, you will still crumble.
Yeah. Right. Because
it's a reflection on, it still feels like a reflection on you. I must not be as likable as I think if someone doesn't approve of me.
And the reason that this is so exhausting is because people pleasing, much like alcohol, if you're an alcoholic, is not bankable. Like, every day you wake up and you need a new fix. Nothing will ever be enough.
Yep.
So one of the really insidious things she talks about in this book is that you have to keep expanding your circle of how many people that you are pleasing in order to get your fix. And it is a fix. Every time you get praise, it is a fix.
It's a dopamine hit.
Well, okay, so let me back up and talk about why this happens. One of the things that she talks about in this book, which completely affirmed a lot of coaching that I have done, like I can say that this is 100% true. A lot of people pleasers are the children, and I'm going to add in grandchildren because I've experienced this a lot. The children or grandchildren of alcoholics or abusers.
And that could be physical or
emotional, sexual, psychological, any kind of abuse. I want you to think about how many people have a grandparent who was an alcoholic, or a great grandparent even who was an alcoholic or an abuser. Like, I don't think anyone can say that they have a family that is free of addiction of some kind like that, like free of that type of pain. So almost everyone has the capacity to become a people pleaser because so many people were not raised in an emotionally sound, safe, healthy environment. So here's what happens. Let's say that your parent was an alcoholic, or maybe your grandparent was an alcoholic. And let's say your mom's dad was an alcoholic. And so she was raised in an environment where things were not stable, okay? When you are not raised in an environment where you can expect love unconditionally, where you get praised and rewarded conditionally based on how maybe accommodating you can be and how much you cannot piss your dad off and trigger him, you get to the point where you believe that your behavior can control someone else's reaction.
Right.
Right?
No, that makes sense.
Right. So,
especially as a kid, when you don't understand the more complex, like the deeper complexities of interaction, you can totally think, I'm preventing bad things from happening.
So then your mother becomes a people pleaser because she has learned that I have to change the way I behave in order to navigate this really tricky minefield of instability that my father has offered me. So your mom then is parenting you. And she's not an alcoholic and she's really doing her best. But she never really got that emotional security from her parents. So she's already kind of working off of less than and ideally anyone would be able to offer their child. But she's trying her damnedest. Right?
Yep.
But here's the thing. Your mom would probably say she loves you unconditionally. And most parents would say, I absolutely love my kid unconditionally. But their behavior shows up conditionally. So what happens is that a lot of us with really nice, kind, well-meaning parents get taught that my behavior is what earns me my parents' love and respect and approval, the grades that I get, how quiet I can be, you know, how accommodating and nice I can be to my siblings. And so when we get praised as children, that feels really good. And as small little people who are dependent on our parents to take care of us, we literally get rewarded for being accommodating. And it feels so important to us because it's tied to our very survival. I need these people to provide for me. So it behooves me to do what they say and to do what they want.
It's not just I like the approval that I get when I'm good and quiet and sweet and kind.
Right.
It's I'm interpreting their actions as they love me more when I act this way, and I might lose their love if I act bad. If I am disrespectful and rude and loud and go against the crowd, right? Now, any parent or most parents would 100% say that's not true at all.
Of course, they don't realize.
That's not true at all. I would not love you any less.
They don't realize that they're acting conditionally.
Right. But the kids are interpreting it that way because they get lavished with praise when they act a certain way and they get disapproval when they act another way.
Right.
And so they're interpreting that as love or lack of love. And so that is terrifying to a kid to think I might lose the love of the person who is here to take care of me.
To make sure I'm alive.
And so I better act a certain way in order to stay loved and to stay taken care of.
Yeah.
Or else I'll be abandoned.
There's a great psychological study that she references in the book, and that if you've taken any psych classes, you've heard about, which is the pigeons in a Skinner box. So 2 pigeons in 2 different boxes, okay? And there's a lever that they learn how to peck to get a food pellet. Okay, pigeon number 1 learns that if you peck the lever, a pellet comes out. And it's 100% consistent. The other pigeon learns that it sometimes comes out. Sometimes it doesn't. So it's random. After a while, they stop providing the pellets. Pigeon number 1, after not very long, gives up because it's come to expect very unconditionally that pellet will come. So it just assumes, okay, if it's not coming anymore, it's not there. I'm just going to give up. It's fine.
Stop trying.
I'm going to stop trying. It's fine. Pigeon number 2 literally pecks until it collapses in exhaustion.
Because it thinks that if I just peck enough, it'll
hope.
Finally come, because there were other times where there was like lulls, but it always came.
Which is why people pleasing is so addictive, and which is why the people who raised you providing you unconditional love is so important. It's because unconditional love is pigeon number 1. It's my parents value me. The people who raised me value me based on who I am, not what I do.
And there's nothing I can do to lose
There's nothing I can do to lose their love. Pigeon number 2, as a kid, is I have to earn my parents' love and approval. And sometimes I get it, but the randomness of it is what makes it so addictive. Right. That is what that's how slot machines work. The reason that gambling is so addictive is because it is on a random reward schedule. And so you will just keep trying and trying and trying, and it will never be enough. And you will keep having to go get your hits from more and more and more and more people, because you will literally just keep pecking until you're exhausted and collapse and die.
Yep. And I'll say this starts with parents, but you can see this.
But it expands to everyone else in your life.
I mean, this is probably most apparent to a lot of people in romantic relationships. If I show up a certain way, then they might love me or they might not love me, but the randomness of it makes you become addicted to receiving love.
Right. When you grow up feeling like love, approval, and acceptance must be earned, that it depends on being good, like you being good, you become a dependent.
Yep.
You become a junkie.
Yep.
And a lot of us are junkies. A lot of us.
And this actually, the fact that it's so addicting is, yes, partially because it feels really good to get the reward of the approval.
The most addicting
that's not the most addicting part. The most addicting part is trying to
avoid discomfort.
Right. Or disapproval or abandonment or rejection.
Right.
So you think that you're avoiding the worst things by acting this way, and the benefits that you're getting are just icing on the cake.
Yeah, psychological studies have proven that reward is only very slightly addictive compared to relief from pain.
Yep.
So, if like they use rats and cheese, and like they use these again, 2 boxes with floors that will provide the little rat a slight shock.
Well, that's one of them. So one of them is just a rat who is rewarded with cheese. So if it figures out how to go through a door.
The white door.
The white door. Yeah.
Right. Then if it figures out how to go through there and get some cheese, it gets its reward.
Yep. And so once the cheese is gone, it tries a few more times and it's like, there's no more cheese in there. No big deal.
Right.
But then they do the same experiment in the same little room, but instead of there being cheese as an incentive, now there's a shock on the floor as a disincentive to leave the room.
Right.
So now they leave the room to go
through the white door.
The white door into the other room where there's no shock.
Right.
And so they're escaping pain. They're escaping a bad outcome. And so then eventually they stop.
They turn the shock off. And it will keep going through that white door over and over again.
Because it's so afraid that I might get shocked again, even if it hasn't happened in a long time.
That is what's so addictive about people pleasing. It's not so much, yes, it's earning. That's why it's so addictive, because it's both.
Yeah.
It's positive reinforcement. It's, you're such a good girl for getting straight A's, and you're so helpful and you're so nice. That's part of it. But the most addictive part is getting to avoid the pain and the punishment and the disapproval and the disappointment, and maybe even the psychological, physical, emotional, mental abuse that might be going on.
Yeah. Right? The author calls people pleasing escaping through the white door, right?
Yes.
Escaping any potential bad outcomes and running headfirst into what you think is a safe space.
You're trying over and over again to head off discomfort, more so than you're even trying to gain reward and praise.
Right. Approval feels great and validation feels great to people pleasers.
Avoiding disapproval is way more heightened.
Yeah. Mostly they're trying to avoid being rejected or hurt.
So, as if we couldn't guess all of these. And also let me say, that's just a fraction of why we do this. But I think what we just talked about and why it's addictive is the most important conversation around why we do this. And it's really important to understand your parents can be really amazing people. The people who raised you might have so many wonderful qualities, but it doesn't mean that at the end of the day, you came away from your childhood with the belief that who you are and what you do are not equivalent, and that you are worthy of love and acceptance regardless of what you do. And it doesn't really matter at the end of the day how you came to that belief. But if you believe that your acceptance and your approval and your worthiness is dependent on your action and your behavior, you are likely going to fall into some people-pleasing tendencies or depression and anxiety and a lot of the things that result from believing that your worthiness is something you have to wake up every day and prove and earn. So we're going to get into, again, how to work through this and undo this. But first, we're going to talk about the consequences of like the long-term consequences of showing up as a people pleaser.
Yeah. And we're not even getting into, there's actually 3 types of people pleasing.
We're not even talking about that.
That the book gets into. So you might relate more with one or another or all 3. For example, I don't really relate to 2 of the 3 types of people pleasing, but
not
I
as much.
am very much enmeshed in one of the categories. So I think it's like behavioral, thought, and avoiding conflict. I think are the 3. And she gives a whole long summary. So if you're curious how it might be showing up for you specifically, I recommend reading the book because there's just no way we could give you everything from the book. It's just too much. But that's like the how of how it might show up. So now we're going to talk into the consequences of people pleasing.
Well, how about this? You don't have a personality and people can't get to know you. A client recently told me, wow, my mom is a total people pleaser. And I just realized I've known her my entire life, 3 decades, and I have no idea who she is.
Oh, that breaks my heart.
I know, because her whole life has been dedicated to making other people happy. And I don't even know what she prefers. I don't know.
You don't have preferences.
Right.
Your preferences are just what everyone else wants.
Right. So being nice, like that's the hallmark of being a people pleaser is you relate as being a nice person.
You know what's funny is I used to get pissed when people would call me nice. I would be so offended
even
by
though
that.
You were nice.
Right. And yeah, I was very nice, but it was so offensive to me. And now I understand why, was because it felt so bland. And it wasn't because being nice is a bad thing. Being a nice person, being a kind person, that is a compliment. But when it feels like that's the one thing people have to say about you, that's what it feels like. It feels one-dimensional. It feels like I don't have a personality and that's all you got. And
I think the reason it pissed you off was because there was a real person underneath all of that and you wanted very badly to express yourself, but you did feel blocked from being able to. And so it was
triggering something in me that wanted to express.
The real you wanted to get out.
Right. So if you also get frustrated by that, like, people just are always saying, oh, you're so nice, you're so sweet, you're so kind. And it just feels like, hello, there's more me in here.
Yeah, it might be your fault that people are perceiving you that way.
Yeah, that might be a sign of people pleasing, that you're coming across as nice and kind and sweet, but you might actually have other things that you're trying to express, but you're so afraid of the outcome that you just result to people pleasing.
So, another consequence. The more you identify with being nice instead of being real, the more you will find yourself plagued by nagging doubts, insecurities, and lingering fears.
Oh, right, because no one actually knows who I am. So what if they ever actually found out?
Oh, God.
That's terrifying. So of course you'd be insecure about that. And you'd have lingering fears about, am I even actually a likable person? I know that this persona I'm putting out is likable, or I think it is.
That's what's so heartbreaking. And I think this is another consequence of people pleasing, is that it doesn't actually do anything for your self-esteem because on some level, you know that people don't like you for who you are.
Yeah, because you're not being who you are.
Because you're not being yourself. So there's there's no real reward in it as far as people don't get to know you. They don't accept you, really. Again, it's a compulsion. It's an avoidance of pain more than it is doing something because you're really deeply getting approval. You know you're not.
Yeah, yeah. And just like with any addiction, you're never going to be satisfied. It's never going to be enough. You'll always have to just keep giving more and more and more and proving I'm a nice person. I'm a kind person, because there's never a point at which you can say, okay, now I've proved myself to be a nice person. You have to keep doing it. Just like any addiction, like any drug, you have to keep adding more and more and more. It's exhausting.
Well, and then that pressure gets built up and it has to be released. And here's how people pleasers release their pressure. It's inwardly, and then it becomes depression and fatigue, or outwardly, and they blow up in resentment. So in hostility. And a lot of people pleasers, it's like they bottle it up and they bottle it up and they bottle it up and then they lose it on something.
Yep.
Maybe something kind of stupid even that didn't like sort of deserve the reaction that it got.
Or it implodes.
Both.
Right. That's more of my experience is the imploding. But I've seen plenty of
I'm going to call Kristen out, except when she used to get drunk when we were younger.
Oh, yeah. That was
And
my
then she would be super mean. It was weird. It was like Jekyll and Hyde. And what I realize now is that it was all that bottled up hostility and resentment. She wasn't expressing her anger.
Yeah. But then you let the reserves down a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And then it came out. And it was weird. It was like, I don't even know who this person is. Is this who you really are? Are you really just like mean?
No, that was just like the way it was expressing itself. And you'll see other people who just the smallest thing will set them off. And it's like the straw that broke the camel's back and they just lose their shit on you.
Yeah. So people pleasers often are quietly resentful of everyone because they believe everyone is like a drain on their resources and time and energy because they can't say no.
Yeah. They're resentful of everyone, but they also need everyone.
It's a terrible cycle to be caught in. Okay. So another consequence is you are incredibly harsh on yourself. And in the book, she says, holding yourself to perfectionist standards like these is nothing short of self-imposed emotional cruelty. And if you think that sounds too dramatic or extreme, imagine a mother instructing her child to meet certain requirements. You must always please me, says the woman sternly to the young child. You are to fulfill each and every request or order I issue, no matter what you are doing or how you feel. And you must smile and be happy all the time. If I ever hear you complain or show any signs of an emotion other than happiness, you will be punished. If you fail to do these things perfectly, I will not love you anymore. Any questions?
Whoa.
That is how you are treating yourself, though.
I know.
That is it.
When you hear it expressed externally like that.
Does it not sound like a freaking mommy dearest psycho? It does. It is. It is emotional abuse to yourself.
But that's exactly how we talk to ourselves. Unfortunately, you have to always be nice. Don't let anyone know when you're angry with them. Just hold it in. It's not worth it. Make sure that you're always accommodating and sweet. And oh my God, it's exhausting and it's mean. It's a really mean way to treat yourself.
Again, guilt and depression are reflections of anger directed inward on yourself. So repressing that anger that we talked about a minute ago doesn't have benign consequences. It builds up in you. That energy has to go somewhere. And when it does, you can easily get extremely depressed.
Yep.
You're not letting your emotions flow.
Yep. So here's a really weird twist on people pleasing that people pleasers won't like.
You won't like, but it's true.
But it's actually a really selfish way of being, right? Because everything is about you. So if someone rejects you, it's, I didn't do enough.
I must not have been nice enough.
Right. I should have done more or helped more or supported more, when really it might have nothing to do with you, right? Or even when someone's in a bad mood, it's like, I should have helped them more. I should have been there for you. Or I'm sorry I didn't help. But it's not about you.
Yeah, it's like your kid, I don't know, your kid doesn't get picked for a sports team and you're like, I wasn't a supportive enough parent. I should have encouraged them more. It's like, this isn't about you. And why are you twisting and warping this and to make it about you? This is about them.
And so it's so strange because in the people pleaser's mind, that's their way of being supportive and being loving and being selfless. But when you make it all about you, that's actually the definition of selfish.
Yeah.
So it's warped.
Yeah, it's wild. You expect to be rejected and you head it off by anticipating what will please people, which we've talked about. But I think this kind of shows up as apologizing for existing, basically.
Yeah.
Like you will have to live as a walking apology. Like, I'm sorry that I'm a little bit overweight and I know that I'm not really worthy. So because I'm really ashamed of how I look and feel, I'm going to just accommodate you all of the time. And I'm sorry that I exist. And I'm sorry that I'm not pleasing to look at. Like,
yeah.
What? How awful is that?
I know.
Ugh.
Ooh, yeah. Also, you cannot handle conflict or confrontation at all.
Yeah, this is a huge consequence of being a people pleaser. It's actually a cause and a consequence of being a people pleaser, is that you can't handle conflict. There's actually a word for it, apparently. It's called emotophobia, which is emoto, like emotion, phobia, excessive or irrational fear of negative feelings. So we're going to throw Kristen under the bus now and say this is her people pleasing problem.
Yeah, mine is the fear of, mine's the emotional side, which is the fear of conflict.
So tell me about how that shows up for you. What does it feel like for the people who don't understand? And for the people who do, they'll just feel you in solidarity.
You're in conflict or when you're...
Both.
Okay. Fear of conflict is, let me do what I can to sidestep any potential conflict. So I'm just going to... It's kind of like walking on eggshells, first of all. Like,
right.
At any point, someone might get angry with me for something that I do. So let me try to only do what they would want me to do.
So I have to be really small and quiet and accommodating. And I have to like live in a very small margin because anything I do or say could trigger somebody.
Right. Exactly. Right. So that's the fear of potential conflict. But once you're actually in conflict, it's completely terrifying. You assume that's going to be the end of the relationship. Like, anger to you feels like the end. And so you will do anything to try to stop it or make the other person feel bad so they'll stop being angry at you. Mm-hmm. That's a common one.
Oh, so use guilt tripping and manipulation.
Right. Because if I'm small and weak and sad and hurt, then you won't want to keep yelling at me.
Do you want to know what's funny? Is that as someone who has no problem getting angry, I will tell you that is the most rage-inducing is that.
I know. That's what's so crazy about all of these
It's someone who will try to manipulate you into not being mad and won't let you feel how you feel and who's like playing the victim. Like there's nothing that, if you're in perpetrator mode, there's nothing you like more than beating up on a victim. And so you make yourself more of a target in a weird way.
Yeah, it's so twisted. But yeah, so that's what it feels like avoiding it, and that's what it feels like in it. Because it feels like if you jump up and start fighting in return, someone's going to get really hurt and maybe leave.
Right. So anger in a people pleaser's mind equals aggression.
Yes.
Like there's no difference between those two things. Right. Aggression and abandonment. So something bad will happen to you either way. Anger always equals something bad will happen to you.
Right.
Which is not true. Anger can be very constructive and necessary.
Which is why it's not that people pleasers don't feel anger. It's just that they're afraid of direct confrontation, which is why so many of them are passive aggressive. Because it's a way of skipping around. Yes. I'm raising my hand. I used to be so passive aggressive.
Kristen used to actually, in college, she would brag about how passive aggressive she was. And she didn't realize that's what she was doing. I didn't use those terms,
but I thought I was superior for not engaging in
conflict ever.
Yes. Yeah.
She would just be like, oh, well, like, I don't ever have to raise my voice to my boyfriend because I'll just act a certain way and then he'll know that I'm mad and then he'll change. And I'm like, that's actually passive aggression. But she didn't know that. And like,
bless my college boyfriend for sticking around as long as he did.
Well, he didn't stick around very long, but
he stuck it out for a few years, which is more than he probably should have when I was in that state of being. But bless him. That's a go-to tactic for people pleasers. Well, because direct confrontation is so scary. And that stepping around it feels a little softer.
Here's what really pisses me off about passive aggression is that people pleasers do it because they can still technically be qualified as nice.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And that's like you trying to have your cake and eat it too.
Losing your nice status is the ultimate fear.
Ugh. Yeah. I just don't get it because I've never, being nice is like the most boring thing anyone could say about me.
I have a lot of empathy because I definitely have experienced this. And now I agree, I cannot stand passive aggressiveness from anyone.
Right.
It's just, it feels like nails on a chalkboard. But I understand why that's an avenue for people pleasers is because you're still afraid of being disliked. So coming straight at something feels like you could be judged for that. So you're just going to skirt around it and you still have anger. It has to express. It kind of leaks out through passive aggressiveness.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the last consequence, and this is by far not the last consequence. It's just one of the last ones that we wanted to talk about is as a people pleaser, you tend to see people not as they actually are, but through a lens in which you're making up excuses for them and minimizing their behavior. Mm-hmm. Like you assume that everyone wants to be nice and everyone wants to be wants to be pleasing to other people.
Because you have good intentions. And so you would assume other people are going to have good intentions and trying to be doing things that are nice and helpful to you because that's always your motive.
So it opens you up to being taken advantage of in a huge way.
Absolutely.
And you have blinders on a lot when it comes to people. And in romantic relationships, I don't think this shows up anywhere stronger than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Although it can show up in friendships too, toxic friendships.
It totally can. Yeah. It just shows up everywhere. So, okay, wow. That was a lot.
Consequences. Hopefully we've convinced you that this is a habit worth breaking, even though it's scary, because the inner fearful part of you is going to think, oh my God, everyone's going to hate me and leave me.
Because if you're a people pleaser, let's just sum this up. You have no personality. Not really. You can never make
You do, but no one knows it.
Exactly. Of course you have a personality, but like on the surface, no one knows it.
Yeah.
So that means you can't connect with anyone. Not really. Which means no one's ever actually accepting you for who you are. You never feel worthy. You aren't able to express your emotions properly. You have an irrational fear of anger and confrontation, which is a necessary part of human life and growth. You can't grow if you're not feeling half of your feelings. And when you shut down things that are as important as anger, you're shutting down all of your emotions. You can't just numb one emotion and not numb all of them. So you're also limiting your capacity to feel joy and excitement. You can never really relax because, again, you believe your worth is tied to what you do. So every moment you're just sitting there could be a moment that you're earning some sort of praise or approval.
Right. And you also can't relax because you're navigating a minefield because when anger and confrontation are so terrifying and those are normal human, they're going to happen. So when you're walking around and that could happen at any moment, that's terrifying. It's anxiety inducing.
Right. I mean, this is the worst. Like, you're not actually living if you're people pleasing. You are existing and you're not having a good time.
Yep.
Even so.
So again, like we said at the beginning, some of you are going to relate to this on a deep level and say, oh my God, this is running my life. Others of you might say, okay, I'm not that extreme, but I do have some of those tendencies for sure. And I don't like the results and I don't like how it feels. So this is on a spectrum. No matter how much or little you resonated with this, there are still ways to break this habit. Even if it's been the way you've been operating in the world for most of your life, there are ways of breaking through this. There's actually a lot of ways listed in the book that we mentioned, The Disease to Please. There's a what is it?
The whole
21-day
third of the book is a 21-day
step-by-step detox program.
Yeah.
So every day she gives you something to do or try to slowly break the habit of people pleasing. So that's a really good place to start if you felt very uncomfortable by this conversation because you feel like maybe we called you out a little bit. A previous version of me would have felt really uncomfortable. I would have been cringing listening to all of this because it would have struck something deep.
I don't know if you could have listened to this
I know.
6 years ago or something. I think you would have just been like, nope, turning this off, going into denial, bye-bye.
But if this does resonate with you, I really recommend trying that 21-day program. But we are going to give you a few ways.
We're going to give you some of Rachel's ways of detoxing from people pleasing as well. So one of them is this, and this is, you're going to think this is subtle, and it is, but it's incredibly profound. Stop saying, I am a people pleaser. Whenever you invoke the words I am, you are saying this is an intrinsic part of my identity. Like, I am Rachel, which is true. I could change my name, but would I really ever resonate as someone other than Rachel at this point? Probably not. I am smart. I ain't got a problem saying that. I know it's true. I am sarcastic. Totally true. You could, I don't know where you would try to saw that one out of me, you know? There are certain things that you just are, and you know that you are at your core. So when you say I am a people pleaser, what you're saying is that this is an intrinsic part of who I am and I can't really change it. And so I just have to deal with it.
Yeah, you've resigned yourself to this is a part of myself that's never going to change. And that's not true.
It's not true.
People pleasing is a habit.
It's a learned habit.
Yes. It's a way of behaving and thinking and acting. It is not who you are. You don't come in built as a people pleaser.
You don't come in as an alcoholic.
Right. The same way that you are born an introvert or extrovert, you are not born
a people
pleaser.
No.
So when you stop calling yourself that, then you actually give yourself space to be something different.
You are not a people pleaser. Your inner critic is a people pleaser.
Yeah, the fearful part of you.
Call the gremlin.
Right. It's the fearful part of you that's completely afraid of rejection, of failure, of disappointment, of being hurt by anyone or anything. And so it will do whatever it can to protect you. And so people pleasing is one of its tactics to try to protect you from being hurt.
Which makes sense. One of the things that they teach us in coach training that's really helpful is to name your inner critic so that you can identify it as someone other than you. Yep. You can come up with a name that you don't particularly like or a name that you don't know anyone who has that name.
Yeah, you could name your people pleaser.
Right.
Oh, that's not me right
that's
now.
Sharon.
Sharon.
I had a boss I hated named Sharon.
I was going to say, you did know someone named Sharon.
I didn't like her one bit. Yeah, and so, okay, that's not me because I am not a people pleaser. At my core, I am a whole and contented and satisfied and worthy person, but I have this really loud people pleaser who is trying to influence me and keep me safe and small so that no one will hurt me or reject me, which makes sense because, again, our brains haven't really evolved past 10,000 years ago when if the tribe kicked us out, we died. So it is a biological imperative for us to try to get other people's acceptance, but we don't need it. We might want it, but it's not actually imperative to our survival.
And we certainly don't need it from everyone.
No, we don't need it from anybody, but we definitely don't need it from everyone. So that's just Sharon or whatever your gremlin's name is. That's really important. I know it sounds silly, but it's so important to realize that this isn't me because when you realize it's not you, you have a freedom from it and you have a one step back from it and you have a bird's eye view on it.
Yeah, there's a degree of separation between you and that fearful part, the fearful voice within you. And you get to decide, am I going to listen to the fearful voice or am I going to listen to myself, the real me?
Right.
So I also want to say, if you could master this, you'd be good.
This is all you ever need to know.
This is really it. So easier said than done. But if you could truly, the deepest part of your heart, believe that what you do is not the same thing as who you are, that would cure your people pleasing in a second, right? Like what I do out in the world has no reflection on my worthiness as a very human being. In fact, the blog that I wrote earlier this week goes into this a little bit too. You'll notice that there's a theme this week on people pleasing and overgiving and worthiness and all of that. That's kind of on purpose. But if you could separate your worthiness from your actions, that would result in true confidence and liking yourself.
To say this very quickly, we live in a world where we believe in a binary, like either or. So I'm either a good person or I'm a bad person. So a good daughter always says yes to everything her mom asks her to do. And if I say no, I am a bad daughter. We don't actually live in that world. We live in a both and world. I can both be a good daughter and tell my mom no, and that doesn't make me a bad person.
Yep.
That's what we say when we mean you are not what you do. You are a worthy person who failed. That doesn't make you a failure.
Yep.
You are a smart person who made a mistake. That doesn't make you dumb. So your people pleaser wants you to believe that you are what you do. And in order to stop people pleasing, in order to stop caring about it, you have to know that who you are is not something that what you do can change.
Yes. Yes.
Because then you have freedom. Then you can break free. You can literally loose the bonds of people pleasing.
I feel like we could write a whole book just on this one point, but we're just going to leave you with that for now.
Yeah, you might need to process that alone for an hour. Okay.
Also, to break through people pleasing, you're going to have to get comfortable. I'm going to say expressing all emotion because emotion is scary, but I'm going to say especially anger.
Yeah.
Anger is really, really scary to people pleasers. Not just other people's anger, but your own anger.
Yeah, you won't just let yourself be angry because that makes you a bad person, apparently.
Well, and that might spark other people's anger, which might lead to abandonment, right?
Oh, God.
Yeah. So your anger could have a lot of terrible consequences. And so mostly you stuff it down. That's where the passive aggressiveness comes from. That's where the frustration or imploding when it hits breaking point comes from. It's because we're not expressing anger. So it's really important to find some healthy ways of expressing anger when it happens, not waiting until it explodes out of you because you don't have any more capacity to hold it in.
If you need help feeling your emotions, I would listen to that episode we did with Joanna about emotional constipation.
Totally. Yeah, that's a really good support podcast for that. I would also say you're going to have to start recognizing your own preferences for things.
Because you probably don't realize that you have desires.
Because you've just been saying yes to what other people want to do. And where do you want to eat? And what do you want to do?
Whatever you want to do. That is the most boring answer you could ever give someone.
Yep. But that's a people pleaser's go-to line. Ugh. And so you're going to have to say, what do I want to eat right now? What do I want to do? What movie do I want to see? And then stating that, right? So you're going to have to figure out, who are you underneath the people pleasing? What are your preferences about life? And that might require, stop asking for other people's input. Stop asking for advice. What do you think I should wear to this event? Or where do you think I should go?
Should I go out with this guy?
Right. If you are always getting other people's input, you don't actually know how you feel.
Yeah, and you probably think by asking other people for their advice, you're making them feel good about themselves. And so that is an act of people pleasing. Just like asking for other people's advice is an act of people pleasing. Please your damn self and ask what you want and go on an advice detox. You realize that this whole time I've just wanted to be like, stop that. Why are you doing that?
If it were that easy.
I know, man.
We'd all snap out of it.
Well, we wouldn't have a job because no one would need help untangling their deep emotional patterns. But I'm glad some of you need help because it allows me to do something that we have fun doing.
Yes. And lastly, because you're so used to saying yes to everyone, right? Because you want to please them, give yourself space in between someone asking you for something and you responding, right? So that might look like, let me check on some things and get back to you on whether or not I can say yes to that, right? Or it might mean not responding to that text or email right away until you sit with it and check your calendar and say, do I really have the capacity for that right now? So you might have to actually ask for a pause, right? I'll get back to you instead of just immediately going to the yes. That's what people pleasers do. Sure, whatever. Like before you can even get the request fully out. Yeah, sure, whatever. I'll do it all.
Right. Because again, saying yes pleases everyone. Right. And like, that's just the go-to.
So create space. Let yourself actually ask, do I want to do this? Do I have capacity to do this?
Is this a hell yeah?
Yeah, right.
If it's not, I'm not going to do it. It's either a hell yeah or it's a hell no.
Right.
That's it.
Right. Is this going to fuel me and support the other person, or is it going to drain me?
Is it a win-win?
Make me feel resentful because I don't really have time for it, right? So consider all the factors and then come back to the person and say, sure, I looked and I have the capacity to do that. Or, you know what? I can't do this justice right now. And I know that it deserves someone who can really support you. And I just don't have the capacity right now. So thank you, but no thank you. It's going to be hard for some of you, but just ask for space before jumping to the yes.
All right. The last thing I want to say is, as people pleasers, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of one of them. And I imagine what they might be saying is, like, what if someone doesn't think I'm nice now? What if I do this and I disappoint someone? What if the world, like, collapses because I'm not nice anymore? Or people think I'm selfish? Like, how do I survive the fallout of changing myself into not a people pleaser?
First of all, you are going to disappoint people. It's not an if.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a definite win. But you're disappointing people all the time. Exactly. You just don't realize it.
You are already disappointing people. And you might have some people who need to fall away.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're people-pleasing everyone, you're not being very discerning about who's in your life.
You've taught people that they can just take advantage of you and lean on you and leech you dry because you've let them.
Yes.
So there might be some people who are mad that you've decided to stop pleasing them. And that might just have to be okay.
Yes. And that's going to be really uncomfortable. And you're going to want to run back to the people-pleasing ways. But recognize that on the flip side of this, you're also going to have some people who are going to say, oh, hey.
Hello, there's a person in there.
You're in there. And you're going to have such deeper, richer relationships with the people who belong in your life.
Right. You don't miss the person you used to be, and you don't miss all the connections you used to have because you were people pleasing.
No, not at all.
Not in any way.
Not at all.
No
I have
way.
so much deeper friendships now than I ever even imagined.
Right.
Because I'm just being myself.
Yeah. I don't know why we stayed friends. Do you know what I mean?
I know. We were so different in this way.
We were so different.
Opposite ends of the spectrum.
And like, I'm not going to say I wasn't. I was a different version of myself too. I just never suffered from this particular disease.
Right,
I definitely had like rageaholic issues, I think. And I'm still working on that.
The opposite of conflict avoidant.
Yeah, conflict, let me at it. Yeah, but I think that, but again, like people who really want to be your friend will see the real you and they want to hang out with the real you.
They've been wanting to see the real you the whole time.
Yeah.
So you're going to have the people who are going to stick around are going to be the real people who belong with you. And the rest of them might fall away. And honestly, once you get over the people pleasing, you're going to be relieved because those people were draining the energy out of you.
It's like you have a million tentacles just like strangling you and like a million like energy cords attached to you, and you're just gonna like get rid of 75% of them, and you're gonna feel so much relief and space, and it's gonna be awesome. Yeah. And remember, you are not what you do, so you can disappoint people without being a disappointment.
Yes.
You can be a kind person without being nice to everyone. And in fact, you should not be nice to everyone. Not everyone deserves that level of attention and respect from you. That has to be earned. Like, let people earn your good favor and your goodwill. Right?
Yep.
I mean, there's a million more things we could say about this, but like this is already a behemoth of a side chat.
At some point, we've got to cut ourselves off. So
we're going to do it at the hour mark. Oops.
So please let us know what you think about this. We really want to hear your take on this. If it triggered you, if you're like, oh my God, thank you for pointing this out, or
I hate you. Now I have to do something about this.
But please start this conversation with us. We want to hear your thoughts.
We'll leave a link to where this particular episode lives on our site in the show notes, in the episode description. So just go click there, come leave us a comment. We want to hear your experiences with this because we know this was a big one. So,
yep.
All right. Good luck. We will talk to you on Tuesday with a new blog.
Yep.
I think it's my blog, but I couldn't totally be positive about that. Again, you'll find out. It'll be fun. All right.
Bye. See ya.
Bye.